Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Michael Matheson is an absolute awful man. Apart from all the lying, all the thievery and fraudulent claims, and all the complete ineptitude and inability to do his day job, he's decided that whilst he still is in position, rather than improving the lives of Scots, he's going to make things worse. He's going to make a deliberate decision that will increase pain, suffering and misery. It's deliberate. It can be no other thing, because he undoubtedly knows that by doing what he's doing, he is making things worse. And so therefore, you have to question the integrity, the moral integrity of a man who's deliberately inflicting pain and suffering. It's time he went. But this particular thing he's doing is he's banning Scots patients in the Scottish NHS to go to England for treatment. In his mind, if Scots patients are having to go south of the border, it's seen as a failure to the NHS. I'm pretty sure anyone sitting after a year on a waiting list in Scotland wouldn't be bothered if they had to go to Berwick, Newcastle or Cumbria just to get seen, if it can stop the pain, the misery and the suffering. But no, says Michael Matheson, that would look bad on me. You must sit there and very bravely suffer while it makes me look good. What a tit. Let's have a look, see how bad and mad Michael Matheson has finally become. Here goes. Now, you genuinely couldn't make this up. Why would you go to all that effort to actively and deliberately increase suffering unless there is something psychologically wrong with you? This man, as we know, he's a liar. We know he likes to make fraudulent thieving claims against the Scottish people for his own proclivities, shall we say. He throws his children under the bus to try and save his own career. He refuses to hand over the iPad, even though he now claims it was only football, because we all suspect it wasn't football at all. We suspect it was far, far worse. And yet he won't hand it over because we know. And now, thinking that the only saving grace he could do, the only thing that could possibly save his career, would be to improve the record of the NHS in Scotland and ease waiting lists, would be to take up an offer from Westminster to help ease those lists. And he said no. He's rejected it. The people of Scotland will continue to suffer in pain and misery just because Michael Matheson lacks any kind of empathy or even humanity. What a twonk. The SNP betrays Scots by dismissing NHS waiting list or surgery waiting list support from Westminster. Michael Matheson is in the firing line once again for his handling of the NHS, this time rejecting help for the 1 in 7 Scots who are waiting for surgery. Look at him sitting there smug. Yeah, it's okay. If I accept the help, it shows I've failed. So I won't. I don't want to be a failure. I'll reject the help. And hey, Scotland, you are going to pay the price. Your pain, your suffering is worth the price of my job. That's what he's saying. He has to go. He absolutely has to go. There have to be marches on the street, pitchforks at Holyrood. The man has to go. He's inhuman. He is without sympathy. He has no humanitarian understanding of people whatsoever. Matheson has been accused of betraying Scots who are languishing on surgical waiting lists when he rejected an offer of support from Westminster. The UK government has said those waiting for life-changing operations could travel to England. However, the SNP Health Secretary turned down the offer because he's not the one waiting for NHS surgery, is he? And even if he was needing medical treatment, you guarantee he's got private insurance. A letter from August has been characterised a rejection of the chance to explore a solution to the problem of more than 800,000 who are waiting in a backlog. This adds to the list of controversies circling Mr Matheson, on top of the investigation into the £11,000 iPad spending scandal and his failure to comply with the government laws on short-term lets, as well as his basic inhumanity, his lack of understanding of what family is, And of course, he's going to have a lot of problems within his family. The kids are going to be going, why did you blame us, Dad? You're the one that was sitting in a Moroccan room doing the old hand shandies to whatever it was that you were watching. And let's hope it wasn't anything with young people. Although that does seem to imply why he's so reticent in handing over the iPad. I'm not saying he did it, but it does seem suspicious, doesn't it? A Whitehall source told the Scottish Daily Mail on Sunday the Cabinet Secretary rejected the offer. His letter basically rejected the chance to explore a solution. We gave this offer to explore better intergovernment working on waiting lists, as progress in England is much stronger than in Scotland. The Scottish Government has completely lost control of waiting lists, so the response is obviously disappointing. But it is their decision. They decided that they would not let Scots go to England for surgery because it would make them look bad. I think the people of Scotland waiting for surgery might have a different option. I wonder how many people waiting for surgery voted SNP. Is voting for the SNP worth the pain, the suffering, the potentiality of death just to prove a political point? Or do you think that perhaps if the example was there and you could go to England to get that life-changing surgery, you should take it? Well, you're the ones who voted for the SNP, and so please enjoy your pain and suffering. I'm sure it's a price worth paying. It's certainly a price they think is worth paying. Dr. Gillane, who's the Theor Health spokesman, said, this offer was made in good faith, yet it is typical of the SNP would decide not to work constructively in the interests of suffering patients and staff. Instead, peddle grievance against UK ministers. Yes, they don't want to let the people, have their surgery because it would mean accepting help from the British for the rest of the UK. Well, we can't accept that. Oh no, everything's got to be different. Everything's got to be us, all alone. And if people die, as far as they're concerned, as they say, it's a price worth paying by the SNP. Your lives mean nothing to them. All that matters is this push for independence. I don't know what that was coming up. Anyway, he said this is a betrayal of the 800,000 plus patients waiting for treatment or tests who will want to see the SNP explore every option to tackle these backlogs and ensure they get the treatment they need. Let us hope at the next election that those 800,000 people all choose to vote in a way that would benefit them. And that is to say, anyone other than the SNP. 800,000 is a massive swing away from the SNP. Now, you've got to assume a lot of them won't be voting SNP anyway, but maybe a lot will. And if all of a sudden they don't, wow, that is going to decimate the NHS, decimate the SNP for the sake of suffering. The SNP are actively making decisions to increase pain, misery, and death. I told you, the NHS is the death camps of the SNP. This is what they do. They're turning hospitals into concentration camps. There is no other way. That's where they put the people who need to be punished. The SNP, it is the Third Reich. It is the Muck Reich, if you will. He's talking about Matheson, says he looks set to preside over the complete chaos in the NHS during winter. Matheson, who the public don't think is fit for the role or fit for anything, needs to justify why he refused this offer and how he's going to get a grip on Scotland's backlog. The waiting list crisis has amounted to 830,000 Scots, with recent figures revealing almost 25,000 died last year in the backlog waiting for treatment. 25,000 dead people is the price of voting SNP. I hope it wasn't your granny, your uncle, your brother, because if it was and you voted SNP, you voted for your family to die. The UK government offer was made by Steve Barclay, Westminster's Health Secretary, back in August, who said cross-border healthcare would mean patients are seen more quickly, and in England, the long waits of 78 weeks have been virtually eliminated. In his letter, Mr Barclay said, I want to support collaboration between our nations. This will help ensure we're joined up when it comes to cutting waiting lists, one of the government's top 5 priorities. Mr Barclay wrote to the Scottish ministers on August the 12th, but was rebuffed by Mr Matheson in a letter dated a week later on August the 19th. The spokesman said, The Scottish Government did not need to accept any support as we're investing another 100 million a year to reduce waiting lists. So you don't need help. The NHS in Scotland doesn't need help. It's so good that the 25,000 a year dying on a waiting list don't matter. The 830,000 currently on a waiting list don't matter. We don't want to do anything to help them. We don't want to do anything to reduce them, because that would be accepting help from the rest of the UK, and that would make them look bad. What price independence? Which will never come. It will never come. Let's hope at the next election 830,000 people vote anything other than SNP. And let's hope those who've lost relatives and who have relatives waiting who vote SNP also change their mind. Because you don't want to give up family members to make a political point. Do you? Coming up. So there you are, on top of his lies, his repeated lies, on top of his throwing his family under the bus to save his job, on top of the frauds and the thievery, on top of the law breaking over not advertising correctly for the house that he's not really supposed to own under party rules, but he does have it and he keeps it in a separate way so that he can sneakily maintain more than one house and become the landlord they claim to hate. You now have a man whose stupidity and ineptitude has destroyed the NHS in Scotland, who's overseen the worst jump in waiting lists, and that's before you get into a bad winter. And now it's revealed that 25,000 people at least are dead because of his inability to accept help from the rest of the UK. He cannot accept help from England because to do that would show a failure of the NHS in Scotland. And so his hubris and his pride means that he's willing to let people die by his decisions. He's actively and complacently killing people. That is the measure of the man. It's time for him to go. He needs to be gone. Nobody who actively takes decisions that leads to that amount of suffering and death should ever be allowed a position of power. He is responsible. He personally is responsible for suffering and death. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video, and I will speak to you later. Bye.